I watched her lean across the table, her hand lingering on my husband's arm, while his mother smiled approvingly. Everyone pretended not to notice, except me. But when she made the mistake of insulting me in front of the entire family, I decided to serve a dish no one would forget. If you've ever been disrespected in your own home, hit that like button. And subscribe, because this story takes a turn no one saw coming. My name is Marlowe, and 6 years ago, I thought I'd married into a family that would eventually accept me. I was wrong. At 34, I've built a successful career in marketing, the kind where I negotiate million-dollar campaigns and command boardrooms full of executives twice my age. But every third Friday of the month, I transform into someone I barely recognize, the dutiful daughter-in-law who sets the perfect table, cooks the perfect meal, and smiles through the perfectly passive-aggressive comments from my mother-in-law, Lorraine. My husband, Beckett, is a good man, or at least he was. Somewhere between year 3 and year 6, we'd settled into that dangerous kind of comfortable, the kind where you stop really seeing each other and start just existing in the same space. He works in finance, comes home tired, and the most exciting conversation we have most nights is about whether to order Thai or Italian. But I loved him. I loved the man I married, the one who used to defend me, who used to make me feel like I mattered. His family, though, that's a different story entirely. Lorraine has perfected the art of the backhanded compliment, and his sister Sloane has turned sibling rivalry into an Olympic sport, except I'm the one she's competing against, even though I never signed up for the game. These monthly dinners were supposed to be about connection, about family. Instead, they'd become a stage where I played the role of not quite good enough, while everyone else got to be the critic. That Friday started like all the others. I'd spent the afternoon preparing herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables that actually required technique, and a chocolate tart that took 3 hours of my life I'd never get back. The dining room looked like something out of a magazine, candles flickering, wine breathing, everything positioned with the precision of someone desperately trying to prove their worth through place settings. Then she walked in. Daphne, Sloane's new best friend, though I'd never heard her name before that night. 28 years old and dressed like she was attending a Fashion Week after party rather than a family dinner. Her dress probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and her perfume, something expensive and overwhelming, announced her presence before she even spoke. She had that effortless beauty that some women are born with, the kind that makes other women instinctively straighten their posture and question their outfit choices. But it wasn't her looks that set off alarm bells in my head. It was the way she looked at Beckett. That slow, appraising glance that lingered just a second too long, the way her smile changed when her eyes landed on him, becoming something sharper, more intentional. I know that look. Every woman knows that look. Sloane made the introductions with barely concealed glee, like she was presenting a prize she'd won. Daphne shook my hand with the kind of limp grip that tells you someone doesn't consider you worth the effort of a proper handshake. Her eyes slid right past me, dismissing me in less than a second, before landing back on Beckett with renewed interest. "So, you're the famous husband," she said, and her voice had this breathy quality that made my teeth clench. "Sloane talks about you all the time." Beckett, oblivious as ever, just laughed and offered her a drink. Lorraine was already fawning over her, asking about her work in fashion, complimenting her dress, her hair, her everything. I stood there, invisible in my own home, holding a tray of appetizers that no one seemed to notice. That's when I knew. This dinner was going to be different. I just had no idea how different it would become, or how much everything was about to change. The seating arrangement should have been my first clue that Sloane had planned this. Somehow, Daphne ended up directly across from Beckett, positioned perfectly to maintain eye contact, to lean forward with interest, to make every gesture feel like a private conversation, even though we were all sitting there. I was at the head of the table, close enough to watch everything unfold, but far enough away to feel like an outsider at my own dinner party. It started subtly. A touch on his forearm when she laughed at his jokes that honestly weren't even that funny. The way she tilted her head, letting her hair cascade over one shoulder in that calculated move women practice in mirrors. her fingers trailing along the stem of her wine glass while maintaining eye contact with him. And Beckett? He was eating it up, laughing louder than necessary, leaning in to hear her better, his face more animated than I'd seen it in months. But what made my stomach twist wasn't just Daphne's performance. It was Lorraine's approving nods, the way she kept glancing between Daphne and Beckett with this satisfied expression, the way she'd compare us without saying a word. Daphne's designer dress versus my department store outfit, Daphne's confident voice versus my quiet attempts to join the conversation. Sloane sat there with this knowing smirk, occasionally catching my eye like we were sharing a joke, except I was the punchline. I tried to stay composed, to be the bigger person, to tell myself I was being paranoid. But then came the moment that changed everything. The conversation had shifted to careers, and Daphne held court like she was being interviewed for a magazine profile. Her recent promotion, the celebrities she'd dressed, her upcoming trip to Milan Fashion Week. Everyone hung on her every word. Even Beckett looked impressed, asking questions, genuinely engaged in a way he hadn't been with me in forever. Finally, there was a pause, a tiny opening in her monologue. I took it. I actually just closed a major campaign this week, I said, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. We landed the Morrison account. It's been in development for 8 months, and the pitch presentation was, "Oh, that's adorable, Marlowe." Daphne cut me off like I was a child interrupting adult conversation. Her smile was saccharine, poisonous. I guess some people are satisfied with small victories. The way she said small made it sound like an insult wrapped in pity. The table went silent. Not the good kind of silent, the uncomfortable kind where everyone suddenly finds their wine glass fascinating. I felt heat crawl up my neck, my face burning with humiliation. This was my home, my table, my accomplishment she'd just dismissed like it meant nothing. I waited for Beckett to say something, anything, to defend me, to call out her rudeness, to remember that he was supposed to be on my side. He opened his mouth, looked uncomfortable, but before he could speak, Lorraine jumped in with, "Daphne, darling, you simply must tell us more about that dress. Is it vintage?" And just like that, the moment passed. My humiliation was swept under the rug in favor of complimenting the woman who'd just insulted me. Sloane's smirk had grown into a full smile. Beckett looked relieved that someone had changed the subject. And me? I was invisible again. I excused myself to get dessert, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the kitchen counter to steady myself. I stood there, staring at the chocolate tart I'd spent hours perfecting, and felt tears burning behind my eyes. I wouldn't cry. I refused to give them that satisfaction. Then I heard her footsteps. Daphne appeared in the doorway, that sweet smile completely gone, replaced with something cold and calculated. "Let me help," she said, but her voice had dropped the breathy act. She walked right up to me, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with wine. Then she leaned in and whispered, "You're lucky you locked him down when you did." A man like Beckett? He could do so much better now. Her smile was vicious, triumphant. She'd wanted me to hear this, needed me to know that she saw me as competition, and had already decided I'd lost. Before I could respond, she pulled out a compact, touched up her lipstick using my reflection in the window, and walked back to the dining room, leaving me standing alone in my own kitchen, rage replacing every other emotion I'd felt that night. I stood in that kitchen for exactly 30 seconds after Daphne walked away. 30 seconds where something fundamental shifted inside me. I'd spent 6 years trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. 6 years making myself smaller, quieter, more palatable. 6 years watching my husband choose peace over partnership. But standing there, gripping that counter with my perfectly manicured nails digging into the granite, I realized something crucial. I was done shrinking. When I walked back into that dining room carrying the chocolate tart, I wasn't the same woman who'd left. Daphne was mid-story, her hand resting possessively near Beckett's plate, her laugh echoing off my walls. Everyone looked so comfortable, so entertained. They barely noticed me setting down dessert. Daphne took a bite of the tart, and I watched her face carefully. She chewed slowly, deliberately, then set down her fork with theatrical precision. It's a bit dense, isn't it? Her eyes found mine across the table. I usually get mine from that boutique bakery downtown, the one on 5th. They have a pastry chef from Paris. Have you tried actually taking a class, Marlowe? It might help. Sloane laughed, actually laughed out loud. Lorraine made that diplomatic sound she's perfected, the one that somehow manages to agree without using words, then said, "Well, baking isn't for everyone, dear. It's quite a specialized skill." That's when Beckett finally spoke. "Daphne, that's enough." But his voice was soft, uncertain. Too little, too late, and we both knew it. Daphne's hand moved to cover his, her fingers curling around his palm. "Oh, I'm just teasing. Marlowe knows I'm kidding." "Right, Marlowe?" Her smile was all teeth and challenge. I smiled back. A real smile this time, the kind that should have warned her. "Of course," I said sweetly. "I know exactly who you are." Then I stood up, wine glass in hand, and everyone's attention shifted to me like I was about to make a toast. The confusion on their faces was almost worth everything that had happened up to that point. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady and clear. "Especially Daphne. It's so nice when Sloane's friends feel comfortable enough to be completely themselves in our home." I paused, took a sip of wine, let the silence stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. "Daphne, I have to ask, does Sloane actually know you were fired from your last job? For inappropriate conduct with a married supervisor?" The color drained from Daphne's face like someone had pulled a plug. The table went completely still. Even the candles seemed to stop flickering. "What are you— That's not—" Daphne stammered, her polished facade cracking in real time. I pulled out my phone with the casual confidence of someone who'd done their homework. "I'm in marketing, remember? Due diligence is kind of my thing. Took me about 20 minutes on LinkedIn during my lunch break today. Funny how small the professional world really is when you know where to look." I turned the screen toward the table, showing screenshots I'd compiled, posts from former colleagues, connections we had in common, a very revealing thread from an industry forum. 3 different people confirmed it. You had an affair with your boss, who had a wife and 2 kids, and when it came out, the company let you go quietly to avoid scandal. That's why you moved cities. That's why you're suddenly working freelance instead of with that agency you always name drop. Sloane's face had gone from smug to horrified. "Daphne, is this true?" "She's lying. She's psychotic." Daphne's voice cracked, rising in pitch. "She's making this up because she's jealous and insecure." "Am I?" I looked directly at her. "Should I call Rebecca Chen?" "She's commented on 3 of your old posts. I'm sure she'd be happy to clarify." Lorraine's voice cut through the chaos. "Daphne, answer the question." But Daphne couldn't. She opened her mouth, closed it, her perfect composure completely shattered. Tears were forming in her eyes, real ones this time, not the manipulative kind. I turned to Beckett, and my voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "And you? You sat there for 2 hours while she disrespected me. In our home. The reckoning had only just begun. The silence that followed was deafening. Beckett's face had gone pale, his eyes darting between me and Daphne like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Lorraine sat frozen with her wine glass halfway to her lips, finally speechless after years of always having something to say. And Sloane? She looked like she'd been slapped. I wasn't done. "You want to know what's really dense, Daphne?" My voice was calm, almost conversational, which somehow made it cut deeper. "Thinking you could walk into my house, flirt with my husband in front of me, insult everything I do, mock my career, my cooking, my life, and I'd just sit here and smile through it like some doormat." Daphne's chair scraped against the floor as she stood abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this." Her voice wavered, mascara starting to smudge at the corners of her eyes. "Sloane, are you going to let her talk to me like this?" But Sloane wasn't looking at her anymore. She was staring at her plate, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger, though I couldn't tell who it was directed at. Beckett finally found his spine. "Daphne, I think you should leave." "You think?" I turned to him, and the hurt in my voice was raw, unfiltered. "You think she should leave? She's been insulting your wife all night, and you sat there like a spectator at a show. The only reason you're saying something now is because I forced your hand." He flinched like I'd hit him. Good. He should flinch. Daphne grabbed her designer purse, her hands shaking. "This is insane. You're all insane." She looked at Beckett one last time, perhaps hoping for some rescue, some defense, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. With whatever dignity she had left, she headed for the door, her heels clicking frantically against my hardwood floors. Sloane stood up. I need to—" She couldn't even finish a sentence, just followed Daphne out with her head down, the smirk from earlier completely erased. The front door slammed, then silence again, but this time it felt different. Heavier. More honest. Lorraine cleared her throat, attempting to reassemble her authority. "Marlowe, that was extremely—" "No." I cut her off, my voice firm. "We're not doing this. We're not pretending I'm the villain here because I refuse to be disrespected. Your son needs to decide whose feelings actually matter to him. Tonight was unacceptable, and if you can't see that, then maybe these dinners need to stop." Lorraine's mouth opened and closed. For the first time in 6 years, she had nothing to say. She gathered her things with stiff, offended movements and left without another word. Then it was just Beckett and me, standing in the wreckage of what was supposed to be a family dinner. He spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry." Sorry for what, specifically? I needed to hear him say it. For not defending you. For caring more about keeping the peace than protecting you. For making you feel like you had to do that alone. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from when he was truly upset. "I watched her disrespect you all night, and I told myself I was imagining it, that you were fine, that saying something would just make it worse. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was so worried about upsetting my mother, about family drama, that I forgot the most important thing. Which is that you're my family. You're supposed to come first, and tonight you didn't. I'm so sorry, Marlowe." The tears I'd been holding back all night finally started to fall, not from sadness, but from relief, from finally being seen. "I don't need you to fight every battle for me," I said quietly. "But I need you to stand beside me, not behind your mother's approval. I need to know that when someone tries to make me feel small, you'll remind them, and me, that I'm not." He crossed the space between us and pulled me into his arms. "I promise, no more choosing peace over you. Never again." We stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the candlelight of a dinner party that had imploded spectacularly. Then, slowly, we started cleaning up together. Scraping plates, washing dishes, working side by side in a comfortable silence that felt more intimate than any conversation. 2 weeks later, Sloane called to apologize. She admitted she'd brought Daphne specifically to make me uncomfortable, to prove some point about territory that I'd never understood. She'd had no idea about Daphne's past, and the humiliation of that night had forced her to see how toxic her own behavior had been. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest, and that was enough for now. Daphne's name was never mentioned again in family gatherings. Lorraine started asking before inviting guests to our home, and while she still has her moments, there's a new boundary she doesn't cross. Respect, even grudging respect, is better than what we had before. Beckett started therapy with me. We're learning how to communicate again, how to be partners instead of roommates. Our marriage isn't perfect, no marriage is, but it's stronger now. Tested and rebuilt on honesty instead of the comfortable lies we'd been telling ourselves. I learned something crucial that night. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's not about tearing someone else down or proving you're better. Real revenge is refusing to be small when someone tries to diminish you. It's standing up in your own home, at your own table, and saying, enough. It's choosing your own dignity over keeping the peace. Sometimes the awkward truth is the only thing worth serving, and when you do, make sure everyone gets a taste. If this story resonated with you, smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me how you would have handled Daphne. And remember, never let anyone make you feel small at your own table. You deserve better than that. We all do.